Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Using WIOA Title-II and Other Funding to Support Family Literacy Programming. Our webinar today is sponsored by Burlington English, and we have Louis Paris with us, who's going to share a few words. Louis? You're on mute. Louis, you're muted.
That always helps, doesn't it?
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, James. Burlington English, we're always so proud to sponsor these events, and along with great topics like family literacy. Another great topic that's coming up quite a bit is the workforce component, the getting a job, keeping a job, advancing in the job. And that's what we're going to spotlight today real quick. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. All right. So we all know guiding students to their next step for further education in their careers is really what we're all here for. And know that Burlington English, we're here to help you do this with your students from day one. We set the focus early. We even start in our first component, the Burlington Core, where students learn the basic skills of reading, writing, listening, speaking, but they're also getting EL civics, citizenship, and again, the workforce component. And it can be shared with the family literacies. I have programs that will do this type of stuff with their kids, their grandparents, I mean, everyone in between. So it is a lot of fun. Whether teachers have extensive career guidance experience or not, or they're just taking their first steps, assisting students with the job force, Burlington's here every step of the way explaining the process. So here we are in our career exploration and soft skills tile. And in this particular course, the students get a virtual career counselor, and they are taught what a career pathway is, starting from their first job, what kind of English classes they're going to have to take, or what they should be focusing on, maybe vocab skills, things like that. And then, of course, later on, how to advance maybe courses, certifications, things like that. As far as exploration goes, also, we want them to make the right choice. You know, what's a career versus a job? Obviously, we're all in our careers, so we understand that. But here, students can explore all 16 Department of Labor career clusters. They can find out what the job duties are under their specific careers. They can look at what skills and abilities are necessary for that particular career or advancing in it. And then, of course, what kind of requirements they might need along the way. So not only can we help them explore, teach them about career pathways. But of course, we also want to talk to them about setting goals, okay? And we all know that goals help us basically strive. They give us the drive for persistence. So here we have a component called the My Portfolio, which is the writing component. And basically what it is, the students will input information about themselves throughout the entire course. Maybe it's about, this is their education plan. Maybe it's about things they like or they don't like in the job. Maybe it's about their personal characteristics, and it goes into something called My Portfolio. And at the end of it, the students can use all this information that's in their portfolio and put together a very impressive resume that the teachers or a job coach can assist them with. Okay? So by all means, please have your local Burlington English representative talk to you about the My Portfolio, talk to them about career exploration and soft skills, or just basically how we can help your students or their parents get into the workforce, get into their career as opposed to the job. And again, Burlington representatives were throughout the entire United States. There's my pretty picture up here. I'm the bald guy. Yeah, I always say, you know, the first slide started with Robert, and of course, he's got no kids, so he's got hair and money, so he's a lot better looking than me. So I just want to turn this back over to James. I want to thank everyone. I want everyone to have a great day and appreciate everything. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Louis, thank you so much. We are really appreciative of Burlington English's sponsorship today. Without your help and partnership, we wouldn't be able to offer these webinars to our membership. So we're grateful. Okay, so our presenters today are Dr. Carol Clymer. She's the co-director of the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy and the Goodling Institute for Research in Family Literacy, College of Education at Penn State University, and Elizabeth Severson-Irby provides leadership for instruction and program management in Virginia's adult education and literacy programs. I see some people are already starting to say hello in the chat box. If you haven't done so yet, let us know where you're calling in from today. If you have questions during their presentation, you can submit those in the Q&A box. And with that, I will turn it over to our presenters. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming to our session. And I think Elizabeth's going to share our slides. We are going to talk about using WIOA Title-II and other fundings to support family literacy. And I am Carol Clymer, Goodling Institute for Research and Family Literacy at Penn State, as James had said. And Elizabeth, you want to say anything?
Yeah, hi, I'm Elizabeth Severson-Irby from the Virginia Adult Learning Resource Center, and I'm the literacy specialist there. And I'm also working with some programs in our state to develop family literacy programs.
And it's so good to see so many of you from all different states. As James said, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. So next slide, please. All right, so today what we're going to talk about, first we'll give you an overview of family literacy so we're all on the same page about what we're talking about. We're going to look at some data that we've collected in 2017 and 2020 about funding family literacy from the State Directors of Adult Education. We've done this at the Goodling Institute, and we try to keep that information updated. We're going to talk about the more states are paying attention to family literacy and why. We'll talk a little bit about funding sources that are available, and also Elizabeth will walk us through a toolkit that we've developed first for the state of Virginia, but then we've made it generally available on using WIOA Title-II funding, and it's a pretty comprehensive toolkit. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for questions and discussion in the chat. Next slide, please. So first we want to do a poll to learn more about the states that you're from and anything that you're doing with family literacy. I'll turn it over to Elizabeth.
Great. So yeah, our quick poll, that if you go to menti.com and enter the code 5102829, or if you take your phone camera and snap the QR code, it should take you there. And I will post the code in the chat, and then I'll pop us over to the Menti poll. But it's activated, so I think if you go there before I pop over there, you should be able to let us know what state you're from. I know people have already put that in the chat, but it was so fast, hard to see everybody. So again, the code is 5102829. And if you haven't joined the Menti yet, again, it's menti.com, and you can see the code is up in the top there. And it's also in the chat. So our first little question is, what state are you from? And I like this because it kind of just shows, and if there's more than one person from the same state, then that gets bigger. And so that's kind of a nice little word cloud. So we'll give you a few moments. Seems we might have the most representation from either New Mexico or Connecticut. I see those two keep changing positions. So, and it looked like in the chat we do, and from what's coming up on the screen, we do have a lot of representation from across the country. I even see Alaska in there, so welcome. I feel like it's still morning in Alaska.
I saw Nebraska too in there. Wisconsin.
All right, I'm going to switch us to our next question. We only have a 2-question little poll here. So I think when you're on the Menti, it'll switch over to our next question. So does your state allow you to use funding for family literacy programs? So yes, no, or you're not sure. It looks like most people are saying yes. That's good. I think last time when we did this, I think we were mostly in the no or not sure.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll be able to cross-check our data collection. And if there's more states now that are allowing you all to use your AFLA funds for family literacy, we want to get that updated and keep, as I said, the information about family literacy funding is changing, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Great. So it looks like the responses are slowing down, but certainly if you want to continue inputting, that's fine. But I'm going to switch us back over to our slides really quickly so we can keep moving with our presentation. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, so the next thing that we want to talk about is, what is family literacy? And at the Goodling Institute, we are very committed to the Keenan model and the 4 components of family literacy. The 4 components are that there's some adult education, that there's some early childhood and school age education. There's parent education. Parent education means that there's some instruction around the educational development or the development of children in the family literacy program. And then there's interactive literacy activities. That is that you have parents and children learning together. In the parent education piece, you show the parent what it is they should be doing with their children to have fun learning activities with their children. That is sometimes called parent and children time together. We call it interactive literacy activities. And these are the 4 components that are also mentioned in the WIOA Title-II, the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. Next slide, please. So, the family literacy was really well funded a number of years ago when Even Start was around, but Even Start got defunded and many programs lost their funding. And there's a lot of people that feel that, family literacy was waning, and it was for some times, it was languishing. And other initiatives such as, 2Gen programs became more popular. 2Gen programs, however, are not exactly family literacy. 2Gen programs are often doing adult education in one situation and children education in another situation, but not necessarily the intergenerational aspect of family literacy and the 4 components. So we at Goodling really like to keep forwarding that concept, that it's that intergenerational children learning together with their parents that is a really important part and different component of family literacy than the 2Gen work, which is really important work. It's just not the same. And if you look at the PIAC statistics and what that data tells us, the program for that was done internationally around adult literacy, the United States has one of the most entrenched and multi-generational literacy problems among the countries, the industrialized countries. That means really that if you live in the United States and you have low educational attainment, you have a very low chance of getting high educational attainment. And our problem is worse than most industrialized countries. And so family literacy, that's a program that is helping increase the educational attainment levels of parents and their children. And it's very important that we continue to work on this. The pandemic has reinvigorated the importance of family literacy as adult education instructors have seen that their adult learners needed assistance with supporting their children's learning. And you'll see in a minute that our information that we collected around family literacy funding from 2017 to 2021 changed. There's more family literacy going on, and that's continuing to grow. And it's really increased since the pandemic, and it continues to increase. And I think the fact that there's 139 participants today is evidence that the momentum is really continuing to increase. So thanks again for coming. Next slide, please. So in 2017, we contacted all of the state directors of adult education in the country. We really wanted to learn about if the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act funds, that's WIOA Title-II funds, were being used to continue family literacy programming after Even Start was no longer funded. We were able to gather information from 47 states plus the District of Columbia. And at that time, according to our responses from the state directors, 11 states and the District of Columbia were funding family literacy at various levels, using AFLA funds, state funds, different braided funding sources. And 8 of the 11 states and DC required the 4 components. And the information that we learned about what was going on in 2017 and before is in a policy brief that we wrote, Changing the Course of Family Literacy. And you can get that report on our website. These slides will be sent to you, I understand, with the links to this report. Next slide, please. We thought it was really important to update this information in 2021, and we sent out more detailed surveys to the state directors and also to local family literacy programs. We were able to get 47 states to respond to the survey. 35 states funded some form of family literacy. 15 states offered the 4-component family literacy model. 21 states were collecting and managing data for family literacy programs. And on this number, with the 35 states funding some form of family literacy, we believe that a lot of states are funding the adult ed components, so that family literacy 4 components might be going on, but only the state is funding the adult education part. And I think some state directors, aren't really sure what's always going on in their state. And then, as I said, we collected data from local programs. This was a convenience sample. We sent out a survey to all of our networks, to the National Council for Center for Family Literacy, National Council Coalition for Literacy, a lot of different listservs, and we got 134 responses to our survey. 121 programs indicated that they were providing family literacy. 76 of those programs were offering all 4 components, and all the programs that responded, 121, were collecting and managing outcome data. Next slide, please. So this is a illustration of what the state said. 35 of the 47 states said that they provided some form of funding for family literacy. The blue states here, those state directors said that they were only using WIOA Title-II funding. So if your state is blue, then your state director is saying that they are using Title II funding for family literacy, with one exception, this white state over here, North Carolina. We didn't get a response from them, but we did hear later on that they were funding family literacy states. The white states either didn't respond to the survey or said that they were not using their money for family literacy. The green states said that they used both WIOA Title-II and other funding sources. And then the yellow states are using totally other funding sources. That would be North Dakota and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has legislated in their state to fund family literacy. Next slide, please. And so this slide depicts both, what I just mentioned, what's happening nationally, and I just went over that. And then this is also on the left side, what we learned from the local programs. So 46% of the local programs are serving more than 40 families, at least they were in 2021. That's a pretty big number. And most of them were in operation for more than 11 years. In fact, a lot of the programs that responded to this survey never received even START funding. So family literacy, we feel, is a really, stable, strong intervention in our country, because many programs that existed before even START, and then they continued to fund family literacy. And then really important, you know, finding in terms of funding for family literacy programming is that, you know, people are braiding funding. They're using on average 3.2 different sources of funding for family literacy programming. Most are using WIOA Title-II. That's good because it's the Adult Literacy and Family Literacy Act, but they're also using state funding, fundraising, private foundation funding, and local funding. Next slide, please. And so this is just kind of that same information about the local funding. The state funding that's being used in some places, it's like as in Pennsylvania, it's legislated. It's also ESSA funding is being used by many programs, like local school districts are using. There's a family engagement area of funding that can be used to fund family literacy. There are also child departments of child safety. They're using funding. There's some SNAP funding that's being used for family literacy programming. A lot of fundraising. That's a very big way to fund family literacy program, having fundraisers, private foundations, the Dollar General Fund, Dollar General Foundation, William Penn Foundation, United Way, they all fund family literacy. California Library Association or State Library Association funds family literacy. And then there's many local funding sources like mayor's offices of you know, adult education, or children and families are sometimes funding family literacy programs. Also, TANF funding is being used for family literacy to some extent. For example, in the state of Pennsylvania, we get a lot of people from the TANF programs coming into our program, and they're allowed to use, you know, use family literacy to meet their participation requirements for TANF. So that's how that works. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, we're seeing more family literacy as the pandemic has, you know, taken over our lives, and now it's not quite as bad, but we still realize that our families and our adult learners need help with their children. They also need help with their own learning. And in family literacy, since there's 4 components, they get to learn together. And so here's some states that we think have some really dedicated efforts and have been you know, working on family literacy and funding it and making sure it stays funded for quite a while. Connecticut is one of those states. I see there's many people here from Connecticut. They still use some, have kind of an even start based approach to their family literacy. Delaware dedicates funding to family literacy. Maryland, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and now Virginia. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what Virginia is doing. Are there any other states that are really focused on family literacy, or that we didn't have represented in that the map of the US that, you know, we missed? If there are, can you put that in the chat? Okay, so Tracy said family literacy program is supported through ARP and statewide family engagement center funding in Arizona, Nebraska, and Kentucky. Yeah, thank you, Tracy. Illinois Secretary of State Office. Thank you, Rebecca. Joseph, can you hear now? Norma was asking, what is the meaning of the term braided funding? Braided means that you use a variety of funding together to support your program. So you might use the adult education AFLA funding to do the adult education piece. You might use the William Penn Foundation funding, which happens in Pennsylvania in some programs, to do the parent ed piece if they're not getting state funds. You would work with an early childhood program to have the children in their early childhood piece, and also do the ILA along with the parent ed. That's what braided funding is. You use different sources to fund different aspects of or different components. Does that answer your question, Norma? And let's see, Alaska Literacy Program in Anchorage is doing family literacy. Thanks for sharing that. Rebecca, 40 ROE 45 in Monroe and Randolph County. I'm not sure I know what ROE 45 means. So if you could add to your chat, Rebecca, that would help. Oklahoma Workforce and Oklahoma Career Tech Department supports family literacy. Thank you, Jackie. Oh, great, May. I love hearing that you're doing family math literacy. I hope we can save this chat. Wyndham School District in Texas. Thanks, Jerry. Hi, Jerry. How are you? Oh, Regional Office of Education. Thanks, Rebecca. That makes sense. All righty. We'll keep looking for more information in the chat. That is really, really helpful, everyone. I am now going to turn it over to Elizabeth, and she's going to talk about our toolkit. Thanks, everyone.
And just a reminder, if there's any questions along the way, put them in the Q&A. Sometimes they get lost in the chat because we'll have some time for questions at the end. But if there were any questions about that first part, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And I'm going to go over for some reason the slides. There we go. Okay, so Virginia wanted to bring a focus to family literacy. So in the 2021-2022 year, offered a one-year planning grant, and there were 6 programs across the state that received the grant, which provided funds for professional development and dedicated planning time. And these programs had anywhere from 1 to 4 people working to plan their family literacy depending on the size of the program. And so we had about 14 people total who were in our PLC. So beginning in September of 2021, those who were involved in the planning process attended monthly PLC meetings to discuss community needs, determine the child age cohorts, brainstorm ideas for partnering agencies, discuss budgets. They also completed 6-module family literacy training from the National Centers for Families Learning, which covered the 4 components of family literacy, which Carol touched on briefly. So then moving forward to this program year, the programs received additional funds to help support their implementation. And these funds will help pay for adult education instructors, materials, other programming needs specifically related to family literacy. In addition, the programs will continue to receive support through monthly PLC meetings and also individual targeted support and coaching. And we're getting some coaching again from NCFL. And each program is going to be running a pilot with at least 1 family literacy cohort during this program year. Most of them are running this fall, and several are planning to also continue into the spring. And each of the programs in Virginia designed their family literacy to meet the needs of the community. So each one is targeting a very different population. So I'm just going to kind of run through really quickly, just to give you an idea of like the different types of family literacy programs that we're doing in Virginia. So one program is targeting families who have a child in early childhood special education. We have one that is targeting Afghan refugee families with preschool age children. Another is working with families who have a child at the local alternative middle school. 2 are working with multilingual families, 1 with an early childhood or early elementary age, and then the other is working with a middle school age. And then we have one program who is working with families who have elementary age children who are enrolled in an after-school program called Stop the Violence. And so to decide on their targeted cohort, each program worked with community partners and conducted needs surveys to determine what services would be most valuable. And interestingly, and I think two of the program's benefits, their adult education programs are housed in the same buildings as the child education providers. And so they're able to kind of do those interactive literacy activities, those where the parenting adult and the child are doing stuff together. They'll be able to do that during the school day. So that was really beneficial and a very nice partnership that those programs have. So because family literacy was very new to the state of Virginia and also to the educators in the 6 programs, there's a program that's been running since Even Start up in Northern Virginia. They've been running really strong for about 20 years. But aside from that, no one else in Virginia had really done anything with family literacy for probably close to that amount of time, at least not 10 or 15 years. So this was a very new thing for Virginia. So it was really important to provide the educators in the programs frame or toolkit to help guide their planning during that initial year. And again, Virginia was really fortunate to have a 1-year planning process. And I see somebody from Virginia's on from one of our programs, and also some NCFL people are on, and they can attest to the fact that that planning year was super, super important. It's really hard to develop these partnerships and plan a program in a month's time or in a 2-week period time. Even with this full year of planning, there's still a lot that programs are doing to get their family literacy programs ready to run either later this month or in October. So given that these programs are using mainly AFLA funding, it was really important to use this lens as we develop the toolkit. So I worked with Carol at Goodling in the summer and fall of 2021 to develop the toolkit. We also received input from the state director in Virginia to make sure that we had state-specific guidelines and that we were in line with the state's policies. And so the toolkit was given to the people in the PLC to help support their planning, especially when it came to those AFLA-specific and Virginia-specific requirements. And once we created the Virginia toolkit, we created a general version by removing all of the Virginia-specific content. And our hope is that other states may find this general version useful as a starting point, with the understanding that states may need to supplement for state-specific policies or requirements. So I'm going to quickly provide an overview of the toolkit. The link for the toolkit will be in the PDF that gets mailed out, the PDF of the slides. All the links that are in these slides are active, so they'll take you right there. So again, the purpose was to provide the guidance for AFLA-funded programs to develop family literacy programs. And so the toolkit does contain a brief overview of the 4 components and the integration of the 4 components of family literacy. We also have a section about inclusive programming, which includes working with marginalized groups and also learners with disabilities. And so there's also an AFLA-specific framework focusing on AFLA requirements, such as eligibility for adult ed services, outcome measures, logistics, such as reportable hours for NRS. And as an example, and I think it's the same way in Pennsylvania, Carol, you can correct me, but for Virginia, we're counting adult education hours, parent education time, and when the parent and child are working together, because all 3 of those are being supervised, and there's adult education instructors involved in all of that. So all 3 of those components will count for hours, except for when parents and families go out into the community. Maybe they're doing homework or a community extension, and the adult education instructor is not present during that time. Those would not count, but when the adult education instructor is present, those hours do count. So one important area of any family literacy program is going to be creating the partnerships with other agencies to help provide services to the families, because no one program can provide all the needed services for the 4 components. So it's really imperative that programs start developing those partnerships very, very early in the planning process. And one of the most crucial partnerships is that child education provider, because while the children receive education during the school day, programs need to develop a plan for how those interactive literacy activities will take place, particularly if the family literacy program occurs outside of school hours. Like in Virginia, 4 of our programs are operating outside of school hours. And so they really need to think about how those interactive activities are really going to be taking place. So again, those activities are when the parenting adult and children work together on the literacy activities. And so if the program is taking place during school hours and the parenting adults can enter children's classrooms, some schools still have restrictions on who can enter classrooms due to COVID. So pre-COVID, this wasn't such a big issue, but now there are still programs that are dealing with that. But if it takes place during school hours and the parenting adults can go in to the child's classroom, then those activities could take place during the school day. However, if the program is taking place outside of school hours or parenting adults cannot go into those classrooms, then those activities really, there needs to be a time and a place dedicated to have those interactive literacy activities. So again, partnering with the child education provider is essential because the parents need to learn the age-appropriate ways of interacting with their children during these activities. And that's where that child education provider really comes in handy. So another area of the toolkit is working through the budget. Again, if there's braided funding, working with partners and they're providing some funding or some services, there's a lot that needs to happen with the budget. So AFLA funds can cover some aspects of family literacy, but they may not be able to cover everything. And, depending on what the program needs, you kind of need to figure out, does AFLA cover it? Do we need other funding? How is this going to work? So this is, again, where those partnerships become really beneficial because they may be able to provide funds or services, transportation, food, things like that, that may not be able to be covered by traditional AFLA funding. And then lastly, the toolkit also provides some information on program evaluation, and not just for like NRS reporting, but also just for continued program improvement. So just kind of thinking about, learning from what's happening as people go through and pilot their family literacy programs. So in the appendices of the toolkit, there are examples from several established family literacy programs from around the country. And we tried to give a variety of examples so that people could kind of see like how it works in different contexts. Again, like I said, in Virginia, we've got 6 different contexts running right now, or will have running this year. So, and actually none of those contexts really fit any of the models that we have in the appendices. So, each one is different, but I think looking at those different examples provide some information on how programs are running, maybe how they're doing the different components, how are they integrating those components, what kind of funding is being used, things like that. So we had examples from BRIA in DC, 2 programs in Pennsylvania, 2 very different programs in Pennsylvania, and then also the library system in California. And the libraries were very gracious and allowed us to include some of their materials to highlight how they structured their interactive literacy activities. And their programs mainly focus on that component. So their materials really kind of highlight different ways to structure those interactive literacy activities. In the appendices, there's also planning documents to support programs with recruitment and marketing, establishing partnerships and planning budgets. So the next 2 slides, I just have some snapshots of just examples of what I've been talking about. So one of the things that I've mentioned numerous times is the importance of creating partnerships. So the image on the top left of the slide shows a partnership continuum, and this image is in the toolkit. And it moves from networking to full collaboration because there are many ways that adult ed programs can partner with other service providers. The partnership may look different depending on what services are provided and how integral that partner is to the whole family literacy program. So, for example, the child education provider, such as a school, would be more of a full collaborator, whereas perhaps, and depending on what the adult ed program is focusing on, a local workforce agency may be more of a networking partner where they're sending referrals to the adult ed, or like one of our programs in Virginia, they're doing a career exploration. So the local workforce agency is actually probably more of a full collaborator. So you can see it just kind of depends on the program, what services are needed or provided, but where partners might fall, it's on a continuum. It's not one or the other. So again, it's going to look different. And then the document on the bottom right is a planning document that is in the appendix, and it can help programs kind of outline who the needed partners are and what services they could provide. So thinking about like, what can adult ed provide? What other services need to be provided? Who could provide them? What might that partnership look like? So it's just a little planning document. But again, it's really important to have those partners for braided funding to help, combine services, especially if programs are fully reliant on AFLA funding and are not receiving any sort of other funding elsewhere. And so these last 2 documents, just 2 examples of what's in the appendix. The one on the left shows a budget planning using both AFLA and partner funding. Again, kind of thinking like, what can AFLA provide for and what else do we need? Can our partners provide for it? Or again, if you're using braided funding, what you could insert other grants and say like, okay, this grant can do these things. So again, that braided funding is crucial. Working with partners is very crucial to help fully support all 4 components. And then the image on the right is a sample of a 6-week interactive literacy program from the Fresno County Public Library in California. And this 6-week program focuses on family storytelling and describes how the parenting adults and children interact both during the literacy activities when they're working at the library, and then also what they do as an extension out in the home, like out in the community or at home, so as kind of their like homework. So this is just one of several of the examples from the California libraries. And the other examples that they allowed us to include were a scavenger hunt, a food literacy program, and a shared reading lesson. So with that, I know that was probably a lot of information, but we hope that we provided you with a snapshot of family literacy programming and funding from around the country, and also a glimpse into how Virginia is working to help programs plan for and implement family literacy. And we also hope that the information about the toolkit was useful. So I don't know if any questions came through in the chat or in the Q&A, but I will pause for those.
I tried to answer the questions in the Q&A. Somebody had asked about, the slides. COABE will be sending the slides. James, I don't know if COABE is sending the recording, but somebody asked about the recording. And Norma had asked about bilingual language resources in English and Spanish, or English and Pashto available through publishers. I don't know if Burlington, if you want to take that. I did answer about some of the ways that our William Penn Foundation family literacy programs, they use native language materials in our programs. They buy books in their languages and use those as resources
And I think, I don't know if James popped off, but we did,
I'm
or
here.
not James, I'm sorry. James is still there.
Yeah, I'm here. I
if-
think Louis popped off.
Louis popped off. Yeah, we had asked him before the webinar about
Mhm.
Burlington English and if they had anything for family literacy. And they do have some, I don't know what you would call it, maybe modules or things within Burlington English that do support family literacy, do support some parenting education. So I don't know tons about it. I do know that one of our programs that's working with multilingual learners is going to be using that as like a support. So they've vetted that out and it seems like it's going to be a good fit for their program. So I would suggest getting in touch if you work with multilingual learners, getting in touch with them to see, you know, what services they offer. But they do have stuff that does support family literacy.
Great, yeah. Other questions? Thanks for your comment, Julie and Sergio. Rebecca, contact me about ESL and Burlington English. Where can we contact you?
I do see that there is a question in the Q&A about ways to recruit families for programs. And I can kind of tell you what some of the programs in Virginia are doing. And again, it's really been based on who they're trying to recruit in the community. So I know for those who are targeting school-age children, they did some back to school flyers. They set up tables at back to school fairs. They were there, you know, as parents are going through the school, kind of letting them know about family literacy program. The one program who's working with Afghan refugees is actually partnering with the local library, because those families have preschool aged kids who are not enrolled in preschools yet. And so they are going to be working with the library to kind of get families that way. And then they'll try to funnel them into their adult education program. The ones who are working with early childhood special education are also working with that class, and they get referrals, you know, through doctors and some other local social service agencies. So I think it really depends on, which is not a great answer when somebody says it depends, but I think it really, there's no one way to do it, but really thinking about who are the families and where can you locate those families? So whether it's working with the school or working with other partners who have access to those families is going to be really important.
I'm going to just add to that, because we have, I think we have a lot of experience with the recruiting. And I think one thing that's really, really important is, like, if the first year that you do your family literacy program, it's going to be the hardest to recruit families, because you need to establish a presence in your community, and families need to feel comfortable coming to you. And once you're able to do that, you'll see that word of mouth is really a very good recruitment tool in family literacy. And so what we make sure that we do, when we also run family literacy programs at Penn State. So in our recruiting, we make sure we do as much personal contact to the different programs that we're trying to work with, like schools. And so the schools are very aware of our program. We go to events and pass out materials. The families have to know you and know who they are going to work with. It's also really important to communicate that you aren't going to be telling people how to be parents, but you're going to be helping them with the educational development of their children and with them. And so having those messages in your recruiting approach is really important. And we have a lot of comments.
I did see another question about asking if COAPE has a community of practice for family literacy providers. I don't know the answer to that. And I was also Wondering if Links does as well, LINCS Links. And I don't know the answer to that, but I agree with Sarah. It would be really helpful to have ongoing conversations around this. So if anybody knows if either COABE or Links, if there's already established communities of practice.
I don't believe they are, but I mean, Goodling Institute would be, I think, willing to start one. So I don't know how to get in touch with everybody, but I think our information, cdc22@psu.edu. You send me your information if you want a community of practice, and we will start one.
There you go.
We have a lot of, we do a lot of professional development in our William Penn Foundation project, and we have, you know, a lot of slides and presentations already developed on the recruitment, on the trans multilingualism, and so I think we can be a real support to anyone who wants that support.
Great.
Is there anything we missed? Oh, and whoever said that the native language, teaching in the native language, it's really, really critical. I totally agree.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing because I think we're down to our last few minutes, and James just launched the end of webinar poll, but our emails are in the PDF that you will be emailed. And again, all those links in the PDF are active, so they should be able to take you to the resources that we talked about.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the conclusion of the webinar. Thank you very much to our presenters. That was an awesome presentation. I want to thank Burlington English again for their sponsorship. So thank you, Louie. I know you're logged off, but thank you for your support and sponsorship. If everybody could just take a moment to answer that one question poll on the screen, that would be great. I did document that one question directed at COABE, and I will find out the answer to that. I don't have that right now, but I'll try to figure out a way to get it to all the participants as well. And as just a reminder for everybody, this webinar, along with the presentation itself and the documents, will be posted to coabe.org within about 24 hours of today's presentation. So once again, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our presenters, and thanks for everybody for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.